When building single-page applications, it is common for the URL to change without the page actually reloading. This can create problems when trying to access query parameters from the URL. The QueryParamsHandling feature in Angular can help solve this problem. QueryParamsHandling is a routing strategy that allows developers to control how query parameters are handled when the URL changes. By default, Angular will reset the query parameters when the URL changes. However, with QueryParamsHandling, developers can choose to preserve or merge query params when the URL changes. There are several benefits to using QueryParamsHandling in Angular applications. First, it allows developers to have more control over how their application behaves. Second, it can make it easier to debug and test applications since query params will always be consistent. In this article, I am going to give a brief introduction to QueryParamsHandling and its type in Angular. Learning objective: what is QueryParamsHandling? QueryParamsHandling types or values: QueryParamsHandling default example, QueryParamsHandling merge example, QueryParamsHandling preserve example. Summary: what is QueryParamsHandling? QueryParamsHandling is a built-in Angular routing feature that allows developers to specify how query parameters should be handled when creating or matching routes. It is a feature in Angular that enables developers to specify how query parameters should be handled when routing. This can be useful for things like creating links that preserve the state of a form or keeping track of pagination history. When building single-page applications, there are times when we need to be able to control how our query parameters are handled. By default, Angular will just pass along the query parameters to the root. However, there are times when we need to be able to specify if a query parameter should be optional or required. This is where the QueryParamsHandling option comes in. QueryParamsHandling types or values: there are 3 different QueryParamsHandling values that can be used. Merge. This is the default option and will simply merge the new query parameters with any existing query parameters that are already on the URL. Preserve. This option will preserve any existing query parameters on the URL and will not add any new ones. Replace. This option will replace any existing query parameters with the new ones being added. By default, QueryParamsHandling is set to emerge, which means that any query parameters that are not specified in the root definition will be ignored. However, developers can also set QueryParamsHandling to preserve, which will preserve all query parameters from the current URL when creating or matching routes. Finally, developers can also set QueryParamsHandling to empty, which will remove all query parameters from the URL when creating or matching routes. QueryParamsHandling default Angular provides a built-in way to handle query parameters in our application. By default, when we use the router to navigate to a new page, any query parameters will be retained. This is often the behavior we want, as it allows us to maintain state across page reloads and transitions. However, there are times when we may want to disregard or reset query parameters upon navigation. QueryParamsHandling default example: import component, input from @angular/core, @component, selector. Hello, template, h1 default component /h1 button k1 equals QueryParams equals router link equals /123 v1 equals go to a/123/button styles h1 font family lotto export class default component che. QueryParamsHandling merge. QueryParamsHandling merge is a new feature in Angular that allows for better management of query parameters in routing. This feature can be used to simplify the management of query parameters in your application. QueryParamsHandling merge can be used to automatically merge query parameters from a parent root into a child root. This can be useful when you want to inherit query parameters from a parent root. but also add additional query parameters to the child root. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.